Well, welcome everybody to another one of our interviews of our endorsed candidates. We have with us Patrick Bell, who is running for 7th District Representative. And Patrick, thank you for being with us and congratulations on the Spokane County GOP endorsement.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It means a lot to me, and going to work to be worthy of everyone's trust.
All right, awesome. Well, we're excited to have you with us today and have this interview for our citizens to get to know you better. So let's start out with just telling everybody about yourself, a little bit about your background, and why you are running for this position.
Sure. So my family's farmed here in this area for over 100 years, homesteading up in the Okanagan Highlands above Chesaw back in 1924. And my great-grandfather was an Okanagan County Sheriff's deputy. My grandfather was a highway patrolman. And my grandfather's generation, most of his family served. My grandpa, Delmer, who lived in Orville, was a World War II, Vietnam, and Korea vet before becoming a highway patrolman. So long history of military and law enforcement service in my family. I am a family rancher now. I work for Spokane County as my off the farm job because that's kind of how the economy is with farming these days. Is a lot of people have to have a second job. I've been working professionally in communications and public policy, again off the farm for about 20 years, but still connected to my roots. I grew up in 4-H and FFA, and I hope that my kids are going to have that opportunity to grow up just like I did. I'm a family man, man of faith, a Christ follower. I put family first. I put God first. But just like any other working family, we're committed to juggling and making things work. And so when this opportunity came up, I had a lot of encouraging calls from friends, and I said, "Hey, this is great, but let me talk to my wife, my college sweetheart, who I'm married to, my number one booster, and let me talk to my mom and dad and the rest of the family." And as I did that, they all reminded me of what I'm fighting for and why, after all these years of involvement, maybe it was time to step up and take the next step. So I did it. Here I am today as a candidate, getting around this district, listening to people, learning about their concerns and their issues, and then already trying to get to work, MJ, to think about how we can get results for the people.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yes, you have a lot to be fighting for, and we appreciate you stepping up and running. You've got a great background, Pat. So Pat, why should citizens vote for you over your opponents that are running?
Yes, I think there are some very important contrasts in this race. And if you come to the candidate forums, you can see some of those. If you come to the meet and greets, you'll see some of those. I think it's human nature to present the best version of ourselves. But we all have a history. We all have a background. We all have a record. We have our words and our deeds. One of the most, one of the issues with the most contrast, I would say, up our way, we have a very severe problem with apex predators. Wolves were reintroduced to the district. As a farmer, we know this firsthand, what they can do to livestock, the depredations. The federal government's now trying to reintroduce the grizzly bear. We got a big cat problem with cougars, and our sheriffs protect the people. The Washington State Department of Fish and Wildlife protects the predator. Just had a friend a couple weeks back that had a grizzly bear attack on his chicken coop. And now they're living in fear of the grizzly returning for another free lunch, or a chicken dinner. And these are dangerous animals. They are apex predators, if people know what that is. And so it definitely changes our rural way of life. I mean, for years and years and years, they've been off the landscape. They were eradicated years ago. And now Olympia thinks they know best, and DC thinks they know best, and it's come in and steamrolling over local opposition, strong local opposition. I say that because the Democrat in the race, is kind of in love with wolves and has said some things even in the Inlander newspaper recently that just had me shaking my head, saying, so out of touch with the concerns of everyday people in the district. Some of my other Republican opponents, I believe in the 11th commandment, but Reagan's 11th commandment, so to speak, about not attacking our fellow Republicans. But there's a very clear contrast in types of experience, but also position on the issues. I'm a tough on crime candidate. That's why I have our sheriff's endorsements. I have numerous sheriffs and prosecutors who are supporting me. I have numerous law enforcement, deputies, police officers who are supporting me. I have the statewide endorsement of WACOPS, the Frontline Association for our officers. I have the endorsement of Fraternal Order of Police. And outside of our county sheriff, 2 other county sheriffs who are standing with me. And they know that's because I believe we have to hold offenders accountable. One of my opponents, you can go take a look at his record. He's defended, individuals in court who have committed some pretty serious crimes, including attacking a police officer, including a trafficking of drugs that are connected to the Mexican cartels. And I know that's a job. It's I don't begrudge the way people make a living, but when you think about who you want voting on policies in Olympia, do you want somebody who's going to protect public safety, who's going to support law and order and be tough on crime, or do you want somebody with that other background?
Okay. Yeah, good information. So, Patrick, given the pervasiveness of money and lobbyists in government these days, along with the strong presence of special interest groups, how do you intend to effectively navigate and combat these pressures in Olympia to genuinely represent and stand up for the interests of the citizens in the 7th Legislative District? Basically, we know there are a lot of pressures in Olympia to go along to get along. How are you going to navigate that and stand up for, your citizens' voice?
Yeah. So people who know me know that what you see is what you get. I tell it like it is. I agree with that sentiment completely. I actually think if you look at the PDC filings, there's a very clear contrast in this race. My money is coming from individuals, salt of the earth, hardworking people here in Eastern Washington. One of my Republicans' opponents' money, he's getting big checks from Seattle trial lawyers. And I share that because it's not obvious. People don't always do their research and look for where that funding's coming from. I also tell people I'm somebody who's going to show up, who's going to stand up, and who's going to never give up. To do that, that's going to require a lot of support from grassroots Republicans, from voters across the spectrum, people coming to Olympia to testify, people staying in touch with me. I believe the best way to get out of the bubble of Olympia, if you think DC is a swamp, right? We say that DC is a swamp. Then Olympia is like a backed up toilet. And in the immortal words of Clark Griswold's cousin Eddie, something's full and it's got to be flushed down. And so I agree completely with the sentiment of the question. How I go about it is I take support from individuals, and eventually if there's other interests that want to come on board with my agenda, they'll be supporting my agenda, not the other way around. I have a very clear agenda of defending faith, family, freedom. I have a lot of proposals on my website already. But the other thing I want to mention to people watching is I'm the only candidate in this race who's committed to doing town halls. Town halls aren't a thing of the past. They're not, something from a bygone era. They're an opportunity for constituents, for, ordinary, hardworking people to come out and tell me what they think. And so I've committed to doing town halls in every county at least once a year, probably multiple times throughout a 2-year term. And I think that sets me apart from the other candidates. Some of the candidates running, if you listen to them talk, it's kind of they know best. And they're going to go fight the good fight in Olympia. Of course, we hear that from a lot of people, and then we know they get over there and forget where they came from. Having the history that I have and the family here in the district and the deep roots that I have, I think people can count on me to never forget where I came from.
That's good. That's good to know. And I know you're hitting the trails. You're all over the place right now, putting on lots of miles, aren't you? So you're talking to people, you're hearing from people.
Yes. I'm putting about 1,000 miles a week on the car. This week alone, I was in Okanagan County twice and down in Douglas County twice. Waking up in my car, I have a sleeping bag here. I have a pillow in the car. And, when it gets too late or feel like I need a nap, I just pull over between events. I am balancing this, though, with family responsibilities with 2 kids and full-time job. So if I'm successful in getting the position, I just want people to know I will give it full-time effort, but it's a little bit different than some of the other candidates in this race. Some of the other candidates have what you might call conflicts. They represent other interests or have clients. And so I think with me, people won't regret supporting me because they know that they're going to get full-time effort. They know I'll stand strong on my principles, and they know that I'm going to get around this district, whether there's snow on the road or not, right? Or whether it's 105 or 110 degrees like it was yesterday, I'm going to show up.
Yeah, and just tell people, because especially our Spokane, citizens, voters, they don't necessarily know how big the seventh legislative district. So give them an idea of exactly how big of an area you are running to represent.
So this is one of the biggest districts in the state, if not the biggest. It's 7 counties, all of 5 counties and part of 2. So we do take in Deer Park, and I'll tell you what happens in Spokane County affects what happens in Okanagan County. It might be a 3.5-hour drive from here to Omak or from here to Oroville, but the issues are very similar. The people and the industries are a little bit different. As I sit here in Spokane County this morning, yeah, we're dealing with some pretty tough issues like homelessness and crime. And we're starting to see that in other parts of the district. There's a state-sanctioned homeless camp now, kind of like Camp Hope in Colville. And people are just, again, shaking their heads going, is somebody going to stand up to this? How is this being allowed to continue? And so that's one big part. The Supreme Court also didn't do us any favors gerrymandering the districts again after the state redistricting commission did it. So there's people in the district who are brand new all the way into Wenatchee now, who I was meeting with earlier in the week, who are going, well, we've never heard of the 7th district. Are we in the 7th district now? And I pull up the map and show them, and they're surprised and say, oh, okay, well, you're already here. It's great to meet you. And you're from 9 Mile Falls. Where's that?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely a huge, I had no idea that it was 7 counties. And like you said, Spokane County has got about 8 precincts in the 7th legislative district. So that's quite a feat. So Patrick, given the challenges and controversies surrounding COVID-19 mandates, what specific steps would you advocate for at the state level to balance public health interests with individual liberties? And how would you work to prevent the overreaching use of mandates for measures such as masking and vaccination in future public health crisis, and also eliminate, the picking winners and losers that happen for businesses with the shutdowns?
So the COVID pandemic is what lit the embers that started the eventual fire for me to get into this. I was very active and involved with a group of parents here in Spokane who said, open Spokane schools, open 7th district schools, right? And I was a little disappointed by some of our elected leaders at the time, even Republicans, who I didn't feel like were standing up strongly enough to push back against the governor and the committee of 5 that was running our state at the time, or the committee of 1. I believe those mandates were tyrannical. I believe they were unconstitutional, and I wanted my leaders to step out and say that. Some of them did, and as we learned, and as more time came along, and some of the fear started to subside, and people started to get hope back, and we're out of that kind of despair cycle, I feel like common sense started to prevail again. But it went from 2 weeks to 2 years, and for me, that was a really tough time in my life. I didn't stay home for long. I was in the congressional office working alongside our congresswoman who was on conference calls with the governor. I was privy to those conference calls when she said, Governor, why are the car dealers shut down? Why are the home builders shut down? Why are only certain industries being targeted? It feels like they're being targeted. And he said things like, well, Kathy, you just want people to die? Is that what you want? And so that was the mindset. That was the mindset, that preserve life at all costs, even over the expense of people's livelihoods. And people were ruined during COVID. The number of small businesses and restaurants that we were helping save, frankly, through local efforts. And it was local people who ultimately made the difference. It wasn't Olympia. It wasn't Washington, D.C. It wasn't these, burdensome and onerous mandates. It was everyday people who went to work in their communities to try and help their neighbors and their friends. So yes, I think we have to push back on that. If I had been in the legislature, I would have been calling for a special session after that first period, after it kept getting extended, after all those phases and failed rollouts and the picking of the winners and losers. I think we need robust oversight of everything still from that time. People just kind of want to close the book on that chapter, or so, and move on. I think we have to learn from it. We can't repeat that again. We can't have that happen again and then go through the exact same process and not have learned anything from it. I would have liked to seen a resolution pushing back or ending the governor's emergency orders, which seem to be endless, just like we're taxed to no end. These days, there seem to be no end to those mandates. Even still today, I'm bumping into state employees who were fired or let go or quit because they didn't want to comply with the mandates. So I applaud some of our courageous local elected officials like Jonathan Bingle and others who really put it on the line and helped bring an end to those mandates once common sense again started to prevail again. But I would be happy to work with my colleagues and intend to reform the governor's emergency powers. I think that's what it's going to take. We have to take that power back, some of that power back from the executive. We can't have another endless rolling emergency declaration with no end in sight. That's just wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. And I so agree with you. You know, we can't just move on because we know that there's going to be something else around the corner that, you know, could trigger something like we saw. So appreciate your advocacy with all of that. And I think, you know, it resonates because so many of us got involved because of that, me included, you know, I stepped up my game after the COVID mandates as well. So again, I appreciate your advocacy for that. So Patrick, how do you plan to address some of the other most pressing issues facing our constituents, such as illegal immigration impact, cost of living, inflation, taxes, crime, and education?
Yep. Those are all important issues. I'm hearing about them from community meetings, from local coffees I'm going to as I'm outdoor belling. I'm hearing about those exact issues on the doorstep. So I'm really glad you highlighted those. They don't oftentimes come up and in that order or in forums. On illegal immigration, I support and will introduce the bill to end Washington state status as a sanctuary state. I think that I just can't believe that we're still pursuing that policy, which effectively makes every county a sanctuary county. I think that our local law enforcement and our county jails should comply with ICE detainers. And a lot of that has to do with lawsuits and court cases. And so I want to go to work on that and find out how we can ensure that if we find out somebody's here illegally in the country and they've committed a crime, that they're at the top of the list to be handed over to ICE and to be deported. I'm worried not just about our southern border where these Mexican cartels are importing deadly drugs. They have effectively made every town and city in the 7th District and in Eastern Washington a border town. And I was in a border town this week of Orville, where my mom's from, and Tenasket, where my dad's from. And people know what a border town is. And the chaos and the hell that will follow with it if we don't get serious about that issue and about the fentanyl epidemic and take a tougher on crime approach and a law and order approach. I fear that we've become too much of a lawless society. And you see it in time and time again in all of these issues that we're facing is we seem to excuse the criminal and blame the victim. And that's why protecting public safety is my top issue. I also think we need more robust oversight of the $340 million that the state gave of COVID federal relief funds to undocumented individuals. I mean, it's just unconscionable what we've been doing. And I feel like some people are asleep at the switch. And when I heard that, I know what my reaction to it was is like 340 million, that money could go a long way in getting veterans the benefits that they've earned, which is another passion of mine, helping veterans, right? On education, I know that's a passion of yours like it is of mine. Proud to have my kids in public schools. I'll tell you this, we got to get back to basics. Parents are the primary stakeholder in our kids' education. We're our primary educators. Leave our kids alone. Let me just be clear, leave our kids alone. I pray every day in my morning devotionals that the ideologies will be removed from our classrooms, all ideologies. I don't want any politics in the classroom. I don't think there should be any flag in our classrooms other than the American flag, and no flag higher on any public building. I'm an America First. I'm a Washington First candidate. I proudly campaign in red. I don't have green or blue or anything else. I mean, red, white, and blue, yes. But I say that because I think there are other candidates out there who on some of these issues want to be the unity candidate, or some say uniparty. And that's not me. I'm proud to have worked with President Trump's appointees. I'm proud to be voting for President Trump, standing alongside him. I don't believe there's a choice in this upcoming election. If people want to return to sanity, they got to vote for President Trump. And so I was proud to help implement his agenda on a number of these issues and provide legislative support through the Congresswoman's office. And that will continue in Olympia. And so, yeah, I think people got to come around on all these issues. Inflation, one of the things that people don't realize is driving inflation, MJ,
What's
is
up?
organized retail theft. Organized retail theft.
Yeah.
When this isn't stealing a candy bar, this is people coming in and wiping out whole stores like we see on the TV, like we see in the newspaper all the time. You know what that does? That means that those stores have to recoup costs and increase prices.
Yep.
So, yeah, the other problem we have is everything that rolls is tolled. And the toll that we're paying is in a huge gas tax. Now, I know that we have to fund our infrastructure, and I support keeping our roads and bridges safe and passable so we can get goods and people around. But I don't support the carbon tax, and I'm so glad that this year the people's voice was finally heard in Olympia again when the people's initiatives were qualified for the ballot. The legislature had to deal with them. We forced our voice to be heard, and I think it's just like the bell of freedom is finally ringing again in Olympia, and we need more of that. And I'm glad to see the repeal of the natural gas ban get to the ballot. And I was proud to gather signatures for it. So we're going to need people power because I believe in we the people. I don't believe this seat belongs to any one person. People always ask me, whose seat are you running for? The people's seat. And I'm going to keep it that way.
Good, good. Yes. And insurance too. I don't know how many people I've talked to who've lost their insurance. I mean, the insurance has just dropped people. And so, those costs too. I mean, because of the crime and everything, it's just become very, very challenging for a lot of our citizens. So it's good to hear your passion about that. Patrick, how do you plan to leverage and strategize with the minority that the Republicans have in the legislature to really make an impact? Unfortunately, we hear a lot of people that just, well, there's not much we can do because we're in the minority. And I never like that answer. That never sits well. So what are you planning to do to have impact despite the, likely continued minority that we have?
Well, I think this is another very clear differentiator. There are other candidates out there who are running in my race who seem to just want to climb the ladder. If you look at their resume, that's what they've done. They say they come from the private sector or, they've done this or that, and that's fine. I have a small business owner myself, but people know that I'm a coalition builder and that I'm a majority builder. If we just sit back and always complain about what we can't do, people are going to be sitting at home yelling at the TV going, what did I vote for this person for? I want somebody who's going to stand up for me. And I think we have to actively work over the next 2 years. If I'm successful in November, I will be absolutely committed to helping build a majority and to gain seats. And people say, oh, well, that's a big promise. Well, you know what? I've been involved in Republican politics for 20 years. I've seen what works and what doesn't work. I've seen the infighting that goes on. I've seen the smearing of good people, good men and women and candidates who stick their neck out and put their name out on the ballot. So I get it. If you want to get in the shower, prepared to get wet. If you can't take the heat, get out. But I'm one of those people who's going to be committed to building the majority. And I think we need to form basically a shadow government and come up with a contract with the people. I loved what Newt Gingrich did with the contract with America. I have a contract with the seventh. I've got 10 bills that I'm talking with people about, things like banning foreign ownership of farmland, which many states have done because the federal government won't act. Things like designating the Mexican cartels as foreign terrorist organizations and putting state resources together with federal resources to combat the flow of not just illegal drugs, but illegal immigrants into our country. And so that's one, I think, key differentiators. I already have some ideas. I've already been strategizing with other Republicans because there's a lot of good people out here who are tired of being trampled on, who are tired of being steamrolled, who are tired of being told that we don't matter and that we've been forgotten about, frankly. And I think it's time we change that. And I think that starts with sending good conservative candidates to Olympia, people who are all about faith, family, and freedom. I've adopted that, just like I know the Spokane County Party has. I've been reminded time and time and again in my family, by my family and in this campaign, that I've already been fighting for that for 20 years. And I think those things are worth defending. I think this is a fight worth having.
Absolutely, absolutely. Any final comments, final thoughts, things that you want to share with people?
Well, I just appreciate people out there coming alongside us. We're going to need an army to get this job done. The job doesn't end, on election day. We got to run through the tape and then immediately get ready for a very tough legislative session. People tell me all the time, Pat, we've been taxed to no end, and I know it because I was just looking at my taxes the other day. I was just talking with my wife at the dinner table last night. She said, we used to get into this or that store for $100. Now it's 200 or $300. What the heck's going on? What's going on with these out of control prices? At the same time, we've been taxed to no end. The dollar does not go as far as it used to. We know that because of the hidden tax of inflation. I'm just asking people to send a blue collar guy like me to Olympia. I don't know that you need any special qualification for this job other than common sense. And I think I've got that in spades. I'm somebody who tells it like it is. I consider myself a straight shooter. I want people to know this, and I'll leave you with this, MJ. My commitment to the voters is I will vote this district. I will vote my principles and my values. I will vote my conscience, and I will seek and try my hardest to never surprise you. What does that mean? That means I'm going to be in constant communication with you. Some of the county parties and some of the other organizations, they might get sick of seeing me or tired of hearing from me because they're not going to have had a representative like this in a good long time. Somebody who's actively involved, somebody who's alongside them in the trenches, who's trying to win, who's trying to build majorities, and who's serious about getting our state back on track.
That's awesome. Well, we appreciate it. Lastly, where can people go to engage with your campaign or donate to you, Patrick?
Yes. Well, you can go to patbell.com. That's my website, patbell.com. There's a couple of candidates running that have very similar names. So give me a look, sign up for my newsletter. If you'd like to make a contribution, I'd appreciate it. But even more than a contribution right now, I'd appreciate your prayers and lifting up my family and lifting up the other candidates' families. This is a difficult campaign. I've already had two minor car accidents on the campaign trail. We know that that life is precious. And so I've just been reminded in the last few days about how important my faith is and my family is and our freedoms are. And it would mean a lot if people would pray for us and for the candidates and lift us up. And also pray for the removal of the wicked. That's a favorite of mine. That's something I go back to pretty much every day in my devotionals as well. And so I think, that's really important to me. If people would like to invite me to a coffee club, I'll show up to where more than 2 or 4 are gathered. There I shall be. I mean, I say that somewhat jokingly, but then I've been in rooms where there's 2 or 4 people. And that's the old Scott Barr rule, who used to represent the district as well. You got to get out and you got to go to the people. If that means your church service, if you'd like to see me on Sunday, like I said, I'm a Christ follower. I don't care about the denomination. As long as I can spend some fellowship with fellow brothers and sisters in Christ, I'll be there. So please invite me.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Patrick, for spending time with us today, for allowing the citizens to get to know you better so they know better who to vote for. And it's critical. I just want to remind everybody, it's so critical to get out and vote this August primary. You can't sit back. We've got to ensure our America First candidates get through the primary onto the general election. And so we need you to vote this August. So we will be praying for you, Patrick. And, thank you for the reminder because it is tumultuous out there. And we want our candidates to be safe as you're traversing across the land. So again, thank you for coming here and spending time with us today. And thank you for stepping up to serve we the people and for keeping the people of the 7th District, paramount in your service. We really appreciate that.
Thank you. You too. Have a
Okay.
blessed day.
You too.